Hi everyone, this is Prajwal here, and we are today going to have an interview of Isha Nisar. She scored 99.37 percentile in CAT 2019 and was able to crack, Ahmedabad and Bangalore as well. Now, what we'll start with the general questions and figure out the strategies that she utilized and was able to clear CAT after that. So, Isha,
Yes.
hi Isha. So,
Hi.
hi Shah. So, first thing that we would like to, ask you to, tell the viewers is how you started preparing for CAT, right? And tell us about your background first, right? Who are you, and from where have you studied, done your graduation and everything, and how did you start preparing for CAT after that? Yes.
So hello everyone. First of all, good evening. I'm Isha Nisar. So I have done my schooling from St. John in Thane. Thane is like a next city to Mumbai. So it was a Maharashtra State Board. Maharashtra State Board college school, and I scored 94.18 over there. And also I was one of the science toppers in my state board. But since I had an interest towards commerce, so I took up commerce and I admitted myself to Narsi Monji College in Mumbai. And it was again a state board college, so I scored an 89.08. Since I had an inclination towards management for a while, so I took up bachelor's in management studies and specialization in finance, and I scored about 81.20. Although I was a finance graduate, my inclination was towards marketing, so I took up a media role in my post graduation in an advertising firm. So I have work experience of about 14 months in the media sector. So talking about the MBA journey, it started around 6 years back, wherein I happened to watch Two States by Chetan Bhagat, and there I got exposure to IIM Ahmedabad. And although that was the first time it was an interaction with IIM Ahmedabad, I did not know it was a college or anything about it. Later, I went on to research about the programs and about the institution. I realized this was the exact course I wanted to do. I was in my 11th standard, very naive. I did not know much about it, like, what I wanted to do in future or something. But I saw this was the exact thing, and hence, uh, approaching a, being a very unique person, I chose my undergraduation because I wanted to do my post graduation in MBA, not the other way around of how people have been doing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's very different because a lot of people do not do that. What they try to do is wherever they just generally tell them that what they have to do, and most of them do engineering and then go towards MBA because they feel that their engineering is not for is not what they are made for. So, okay.
Yes.
So Isha, my next question would be about your personality. How do you see yourself? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? And because a lot of people feel that only MBA is good for only extroverts, right? It's not like that. It's about it's building strategy also, and for that you don't need to be an extrovert. There are different types of personalities that are needed. So, what do you feel about that, and how are you as a person?
So I would call myself a proper extrovert. I mean, in the degree of extrovert, also I'm on the higher side. If I have to cite an example, I used to talk to random people in the bus while I used to travel from my office to classes. I did not mind anything. I would just randomly start off talking to people. But then I have my batchmates who are also introvert. There are some people who are introvert in the starting and might get comfortable later on. So I believe there is a combination of introvert as well as extrovert in MBA, and there is no particular rule that you're supposed to be an extrovert or an introvert to get into an MBA college.
Okay, great. So, yes, so Nisha, we'd also like to know, when did you start preparing for CAT? The first time that you thought that I should prepare for CAT, and how did you go about it?
So I thought of starting preparation in my first year itself. But then in my first year, I was being told by a lot of peer group and others that IIM and CAT is usually for engineers, and it's being dominated by engineers, and you should not even try because for a non-engineer only 3% seats are there at IIM Ahmedabad also. So back then in 2015 only 3% was there for non-engineers, and the other 97% chunk was for engineers. And it is obviously a bit disheartening that, and I'm not sure whether I would be in that top 3% or not. But then I saw my senior, who's exactly the same background as me, BMS from finance in Narsi Munji College. She became the gold medalist at IIM Ahmedabad, being the rank one, beating all the old IITs, SRCC, and I don't know, other colleges. So then that became like a motivation to me. I enrolled myself in classes in my second year. I thought I'll start with second year, and by the time third year November, I'll give my CAT preparation. But there were a lot of hurdles which came in my second and third year. I had to represent my college for Miss Mumbai University. So my major timing went over there. Apart from that, I was vice chairperson for a lot of festivals in college. So I was quite tied up. I could not attend more than 10 classes for my CAT 2017 preparation. Um, with only 3 mocks in the month of November 2017 and 1 day preparation of reading the formulas of quants. I took CAT 2017. I scored 91 percentile over there. But funny incident that I did not know a lot of things over there. So two of my very major mistakes or funny incidents, I would say, is the first thing is there is something known as para jumbles in the verbal ability section.
Right.
I did not know about it till, I mean, so I came to know about the para jumbles part 6 months after the CAT 2017. So that was a very big blunder. I was not aware. The second thing was so being like a very nerdy person or a studious person, I never had an option to leave anything for exams. So I used to solve in the same order during my college examination as well, and that became like a setback during my DILR section of CAT 2017, because I was not aware that you can leave a sum and you can go to the next set. So I thought of going in the order itself, and the first set that I encountered was the most difficult set, and I got stuck over there. The other two sections went really well, the verbal and quants, but because of this DILR blunder, I got messed up. And since in my 3 mocks, I consistently scored 97, 98 in DILR, I thought I was quite confident on that area, but I missed on this small point, which costed a big amount.
Okay. So, as we'll get into the details of the paper, strategy as well later. But before that, we'd like to know why you chose MBA. Like, what was it that you thought that why did you decide that you want to go for an MBA?
Okay. So back then, in around 7th, 8th standard, I knew I wanted to do marketing itself. I have been a leader since my first standard, you can say. I always take up leadership positions, and I'm not a person who will go into a technical core area of something like an engineering or maybe a CA, like, a finance or accounts part. I am more of handling everything. I'm like a jack of all, master of none kind of a person. If you see my profile also, I have done everything, right from dance, drama, painting, um, literary arts, fine arts, sports, everything, and I have awards in everything. But then I'm not a person who will just take up dance and go ahead in life. I'm a person who likes to manage things. Even during my undergraduation college, I have more than 20 leadership positions in the 3 years of my college in my undergraduation. So I was always a management person. The second thing was my family background. I'm from a proper business family. I mean, any person you talk in my family comes from a business background. There's no concept of jobs and everything. So it came naturally to me that I also wanted to pursue business. But since the trends have been changing, technology has been coming up, the consumers need different things, different services. And that's why I wanted to have a formal education of business and then go for have an enterprise.
Great. So you had, you had seen people running businesses, and you felt that an MBA would help you, understand a lot of stuff around that. And
Yes.
that's actually one of the best answers that one should have. Okay. And when you started preparing for MBA, did you attend any coaching? Because for a lot of students, we have to be very transparent in a way that should they attend a coaching or not, or self studies is the way to go, and which of those institutes have these toppers studied from. If you are comfortable with sharing that, that would be really good for the users also.
So I enrolled in time classes. So my reason to join offline classes was, honestly, I'm a very lazy person. I cannot sit at any place for more than 20-30 minutes. I usually get an anxiety to, run away somewhere. I cannot even see a movie. I usually get up and down, like, I need to leave from this place. So I wanted that habit to sit at one place. I have never sat in any class since my first standard. So I do not know that understanding of classes. So I had to, have a practice, because again, this exam is going to be of 3 hours and plus the waiting time, so approximately 5 hours. And so that was one of the reason. The reason to join time classes was very basic. It was just opposite my college. There was no other classes right next to my college. So that was second reason. And I knew in my second year I couldn't have gone to any other place, because this was just 5 minutes away. So I knew I can just go there and come back faster to my college for my other committee work. So that was the only reason.
Okay, great. And how much of a discipline people get from joining classroom classes, like, because what happens is people try to prepare online also, and there are a lot of sources available online also. So as a student, when somebody is trying to prepare, as most of our viewers would be right here, they would basically they would have a doubt whether they should prepare online completely, or they should go for offline classes. And what is the benefit if you compare both of these? What would tell the viewers?
It is very subjective. I'm not comfortable with online so much, so that is why I joined an offline classes, honestly. But I have seen people who joined online classes also, and they were
Yes.
quite comfortable with the same. So that is not a problem. What offline classes could give me, since I'm an extrovert person, I like to talk to people. So I made a lot of new friends. Some people who were quite similar to me, they also had an ambition to, go to the top B schools, and we would share those vibes with each other. Second thing is, we would prepare together. So somebody's strength is somebody's weakness. So that is how we can collaborate with each other. For example, my verbal is bad, somebody else's verbal is strong, so we can
Right.
kind of trade off. I can teach you quants, you teach me verbal. The third thing was, I used to get a lot of shortcuts from professor as well as the students. So for example, one sum is going on, there are 3-4 methods to do the same sum. So I might be using a traditional method, but the sir can give me a different method. And even sometimes the fellow peers are giving different methods. And the fourth thing was benchmarking my mock scores, and trying to discuss the strategies with my peer group.
Yes, so that helps a lot. Um,
Yes.
so, and there were mock tests also that you actually took, whether only time mock tests or you appeared for multiple mock tests
Okay.
while preparation.
So for my CAT 17 and 18, it was only the time mock test. But later on, I encountered that you should take up multiple mocks to understand how do you fare in each mock test. So in my CAT 19, I took 3 mock tests. One was from time, one was from IMS, and one was from Career Launcher. And I realized that I score very differently in all these three, because and since I was used to the time interface, I used to consistently score a 97, 98 in time. For my IMS mock test, I used to score around 94, 95, because the verbal used to get me back. The verbal there is a bit difficult as compared to time. And in Career Launcher, I used to score around 80 percentile, because I was not used to the interface that the Career Launcher had. So initially, it was very low in 80s, but later on, as the time passed, around October, I used to score consistently in all the 3 mocks around 98, 99.
Great. So, and um, also the next question would be, when you started preparing for CAT, you joined time, right? And apart from that,
Yes.
what books do you refer? Was there study materials only that you referred, or different books that you bought and referred, as well as how much time did you spend every day on preparation? Right, because that's a realistic number that people would have to have in mind. Obviously, it's again very subjective, because somebody else has a better understanding of certain subjects, so they don't need to spend so much of time.
Yes.
But then, in general, what was your experience, and what did you do? What was your approach there?
Okay. So, in general, regarding the books part, I'm not a person who follows books. So, I will learn the concepts from books, and the books were majorly used in classes, whenever they are taking up any exercise. But later on, I practiced majorly through the test. Like I would give a lot of sectional and topic tests to improve on my topics particularly, and the full length mock test. And I would analyze them and then, understand, okay, these are my weak areas, these are my strength areas. So I need to focus on my weak areas, give a lot of more sectional test on this, maybe YouTube something, go approach a professor, teach, ask him to teach me a particular, concept, or go to somebody who knows this particular concept and who's scoring well in this concept. So those were my techniques. I particularly did not use any books online. And the second thing I did was I was a part of many WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups used to prepare for MBA. So wherein there are a lot of aspirants who are posting their queries, and I used to be very active with that. Okay, so for example, you are posting one question, I would be really active. Okay, I need to find an easier and a faster method so that I will be the first one to give you the answer.
Right.
So then I have like a very glamorous name. Okay, she is the one who solves it really fast. So I used to do that a lot because I wanted to be the first one. I would ensure that I get a faster method. Regarding my schedule, so I will tell you. So my verbal was a very bad area, very weak area, and my DLR and cons were my strength. And so how would I schedule my day was, since I'm an early riser, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and because it's my very peak time to understand. So whatever I study at 4 o'clock is 10 times, I will be 10 times more effective than I study at any point of the day. So I knew 4 o'clock was my time. So I would wake up at 4 o'clock, and 4 to 6 was the part wherein I would majorly do verbal, because verbal was my most weakest area. And the second thing I would do was revise quant's formula again and again, so that it's there in my mind rather than being in the books. It's there in my mind. It's going every day in my mind. And I would meditate in the morning. So 4 to 6 was my time wherein I used to study. Then I had my other courses and all of these things. So I had my other course from 7:30 to 9. From 10 to 6 was my office. Then I would go to my classes, which was 6:30 to 8:30. I would reach home around 10 o'clock, have my dinner, and again sit for my studies for 2 more hours. So I would do DLR and quants. And again, here majorly it was either mock analysis or helping people to solve their queries, whatever I've received throughout the day. Like, people would send me queries in and out. Okay, Isha, please help me out with this topic of DRR quant. So those were my day. So on an average, I used to study 4 hours a day on Monday to Saturday. And on Sunday, I would usually take a mock of 3 hours. And along with that, since I had my office work alongside, I would study for 5-6 hours on Sunday as well.
And were you very consistent with this thing every day? And how long did you follow this schedule?
So I was quite consistent with it. Sometimes I wouldn't be able to follow. My health was really bad. So sometimes it would go down. Like I have to take a break to get my body back. But otherwise, I was quite consistent. Also, so apart from that 4 hours on the weekdays, from Monday to Saturday, I would usually utilize my lunch break well. So people take 45 minutes to 1 hour for a lunch break. I would complete it in 5 minutes. And then I would usually sit and, maybe give a sectional test over there, or maybe do something like a pre-reading kind of thing of the topic that my professor is going to teach today in classes. So I would be quite well versed about the topic before I enter the class. And the second thing was I would utilize my 2 hours of classes really well. I wouldn't even spare 1 second here and there doing a time pass or talking to people. So those were the timings.
What was your first attempt and how much did you score in it?
So first attempt was around 91 percentile. I scored in verbal 93, in quants 94, and 65 percentile in DILR.
Okay. And when was it?
Sorry? CAT 2017.
17. And what happened in 2018?
In CAT 2018, it was in 91 percentile again, 91.6. Verbal 87 percentile. DLR it was 99. And quants I scored badly around 77 percentile.
Okay.
So even though it being a strength, I kind of messed my quants in CAT 2018.
Okay. So, Isha, when you appeared, in CAT for the first time, you got 91 percentile, and in 2018 also you got the same percentile. What were you thinking after the result came? Was it, did you at any point of time feel that, okay, I'll not be able to score more than this because I have, got the same percentile twice? And how did you deal with this, stress of not being able to, get a better score? Because a lot of students here, when they appear for the exam first time, they score a certain percentile, and then when they appear for the second time and they get the same percentile, they get worried, and they believe that they will not be able to, crack the CAT or any other exam. It's not just this exam. It happens with basic
Yes.
preparation also, right? When they are not able to crack something twice, they feel that they are not, good enough to crack that. So how do you deal with this stress? And probably can you tell people how, if you ever, felt depressed about this preparation while doing your preparation journey, how did you deal with that? Because that would help the students a lot.
Okay. So now in CAT 2017, I knew my normal aptitude without any preparation was 91 percentile, because I did not prepare honestly. So I was quite okay with it. Though since it was my first failure in life, I mean, for the first time, whatever I touched, I could not get it. So it was a bit bad feeling. And more than me accepting things, the people around me made me feel like that, you have missed something. Uh, like if you are not able to do it, then how can people do it or something like that. But honestly, I knew I hadn't given so much, so I accepted initially. But people kept on saying me again and again that how can you fail. So that part was really affecting me, and it took me 3 months to come out of it. I came out of it finally when my college got over, because now I was not supposed to meet any of these people. So then after that, in May I started preparing for CAT 2018. So it was going really well. Even when I had dengue in between, I got dengue in June 2018, but still I was consistently able to score 94, 96 percentile. So I knew that no matter whatever the circumstances, I am able to score. So consistently my bar graph was going up, up, up till October started. And I had three treatments going on alongside. My health was really bad. I never took care of it in the last 20 years, so now it was all coming back as a karma.
Yeah.
And I had three treatments going on simultaneously, and one of the medicines started having a side effect which led me to depression. So the medicine was supposed to be slowing down my brain, because I used to stress a lot, and because of the 3 months that I had wasted on thinking about people. But it led to a depression phase, and I realized my bar graph was going consistently down. So from 96 it went to 80, then 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, and finally just 14 days prior to the CAT I scored a 20 percentile.
In a mock test.
And sorry,
In a mock test.
in a mock test I scored a 20 percentile just 14 days prior. So I went to my doctor to ask him, I've just scored 20 percentile, and that too 14 days prior to the CAT. I had almost given up on CAT 18, and I had thought of CAT 19 at that moment itself. But then I remembered, like, there is a method called cookie jar method which I use to remember the past achievements of mine. I remembered how even in dengue condition, if I can score a 96 percentile, I can pull it off again. But then because of these medicines, I had some memory loss problems also. So I had to start from the scratch itself. I was a bit worried on how to even tell this to my family or anyone, that these medicines have led me to a depression phase, and this is a very bad vicious circle. It took me 4 days. I did not tell anyone. I was just there crying inside my room. I don't know how to get out of this. I went to Marine Drives, which was my personal favorite spot. I just got charged up, and I started preparing in and out. I mean, I took a break from my office. In the last 10 days of my CAT, I gave in everything. I would wake up at 4 o'clock again. I would meditate for an hour consistently. I would do everything possible. I would listen to people who've gone through very bad failures and have come up back again, and try to motivate myself whatever possible. And I did everything to prepare well, and I scored 91 percentile. So I was quite happy. that even after scoring a 20 percentile 14 days prior to the CAT, I was able to pull it to 91 percentile. So then that is the reason I did not get really sad when I saw a 91 percentile on CAT 18. I was expecting a higher percentile, but then seeing the graph, I think that was also a really high skewed graph.
Great. Okay. So now my next question would be, how important is your academics to get a call from IIM Ahmedabad, right? Because sometimes people say that even if they are able to get a really good percentile, they do not get calls from all the IIMs. So what is your take on that, and how important is it? For example, there will be a lot of people doing graduation right now who are watching the video, right?
Yes.
You have to tell them whether how important is their academics, and should their focus be on that first, so that they get a good marks first and then appear for CAT later, right? Or should they try to balance between these two and probably risk a little about getting good marks in graduation as well? So yes.
So every college has a different criteria to give the calls. So particularly, I'll talk about IIM Ahmedabad. They have divided the graduation into 6 different areas. So the first one is the doctors, lawyers, and the others. The second one is the professional degrees like your CA, CS, and others. The third one is the commerce part, the commerce and mathematics, economics side, for which even I come under. The fourth one is engineering. The fifth one is the arts and the humanity area. And the sixth one is other, which does not fall in any of these categories. So there is a weightage given to your 10th, 12th and undergraduation marks, to your work experience, and that's how they calculate your application rating. So for example, an engineer who scores 82 percentage in the graduation will get a 8 marks, but whereas a person who scores 82 in commerce will get a 10 marks. So it quite differs from stream to stream also. So I would suggest that you should look up to every college, and after that they give you like an application rating, and then they add your CAT percentile to it. CAT percentile is normalized for everyone, and then so depending on all of these 6 categories, they give calls. So the top 100 of these categories get a call. Top 100 of all of these 6 categories get a call.
Okay. And during your once you got your first 91 percentile, let's say, and then you got in 2019 99.37, did you ever think of joining any other college apart from IIM?
Sorry,
did you ever think of joining any other college apart from IIM? So, and was there even a choice? Because determination is something which is very important for people. People sometimes try to give up, and obviously in India, top 10, 15 colleges are a very different league, and the others are very different, right, in terms of what you can achieve in your life. Totally based on the college, this thing. Obviously, your personal competence and personality will take you even farther. But did you ever think of if you are not able to get into IIM Ahmedabad or Bangalore, what would you do?
So, I mean, I am a bit different person. I would say I'm just a crazy person if I have to introduce myself. So in my CAT 18, I had converted a few colleges, including which comes under even the top 10, top 30. But then, I mean, the only thing I could see was an IIM Ahmedabad, to a point that I have screwed up one of my interviews because physically I was there in that interview, but mentally I was in IIM Ahmedabad. So I screwed up that interview really bad. I wouldn't suggest this to anyone, but then I'm a bit crazy person. I was not even sure of joining an IIM Bangalore or Calcutta also. I was that adamant for IIM Ahmedabad.
So because I'm Bangalore, by the way. So,
I know. I mean, I know. I mean, I have no offense for them. I have my seniors. I have my friends, very close friends in IIM Bangalore, IIM Calcutta, and other colleges. But for me, I personally connected to IIM Ahmedabad. The way the entire style is, like, for example, I asked somebody from IIM Ahmedabad, one of my seniors, okay, so what if the interviewer asked me, what is one thing you do not like about IIM Ahmedabad? I have no answer. Please help me out. So he told me about academic rigor. I was like, are you nuts? I like the academic rigor. That is my reason number one to join IIM Ahmedabad. So, I mean, so anything bad also you're saying, I'm really liking it. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't find any flaw right now in IIM Ahmedabad till now, apparently. Now let's see how it goes about. But then, so even if you see my wallpaper on laptop, mobile, it was always I am Ahmedabad. Even if you see my green boards, it's an I am Ahmedabad. If you ever happen to talk to me, it is only I am Ahmedabad. So my professors also knew that ये बंदी को सिर्फ I am Ahmedabad ही जाना है. She cannot see anything else.
And this is really great because people sometimes do not understand the value of obsession about something, right? For when you are preparing for anything, if you're not very obsessive about it, if you don't see that as the only thing as the goal, right? As they used to say about Arjun, right? They would see only one thing, and that helps a
Yes.
lot. The moment people start thinking of multiple things, right? They do not know. I don't know. Their attention splits between all those things, and their performance obviously gets down. So this is something that people should also understand, right? That focus is very important. You have to figure out that this is what you want to do, and then give everything for that. So, and that's great that you actually you always wanted to get into Ahmedabad. Some of that credit goes to Chetan Bhagat in that case, is it?
Yes. But I would also like have a con for this. So I'm not sure if I wouldn't have gotten I am Ahmedabad, what would be my. I never had a plan B, so I do not know how would I have I reacted after that thing, or I did not know what was like I was supposed to do if I wouldn't have gotten I am Ahmedabad.
Oh, yeah.
So that is also a bad thing, I would say. You should be realistic, but I'm not a practical person, so then it never mattered for me.
Okay, so that brings that makes me ask you another interesting question, which is what if you were not able to crack Ahmedabad this time? What would have been your strategy, right? General reaction is something that everybody has. This is almost like a heartbreak for anybody, right? When they try to go ahead with JEE exams, also any other exam, also or any interview, also when they are appearing for their dream into company or dream exam, and they are not able to crack, they suffer a very huge setback, right? That's something that happens with everybody, right? And they go through a small depression phase. But then it's all about how do you come up and say that okay, let me prepare again and let me crack this time. These are the mistakes that I did, right? So what would have been your strategy? For example, the mistakes that you would have probably done, right? You would also know that during this preparation you would have made some mistakes.
A lot of them.
Yeah. So what would have been your strategy after that? Hypothetical
So
question, but an interesting one.
I would have tried to analyze again. So I had already made a few points that I have made blunder during my I am Ahmedabad interview itself because of my personality, and I thought I wouldn't have made. I mean, till 7th of May, I thought I was not going to make it. But at night somehow I happened to see Mary Kom movie, and then just after that I was like, no, up to call ho hi ja raha hai. And all of a sudden I got gut instincts like I'm going to clear this now. But if things wouldn't have worked well, I would have thought for plan B, plan C, plan D. I would have noted down the colleges for which I've got shortlisted and converted, and I would have tried to make myself ready first of all, whether I really want to join here, or should I just give one more attempt and make myself a bit better and take some more experience over there, talk to my seniors and understand where could be a point wherein I kind of might have blundered, especially in the personal interview, because personal interview carries 50% of your weightage. I would have first thing I would have filed an RTI to understand where was my score gone, and then planned accordingly. If I would have realized that the personal interview was a part wherein I messed it, I would have given again a shot for CAT 2020 to get into IIM Ahmedabad.
Okay, and tell us about the interview process. A personal interview and AWT, and how was that day for you, right? The interview day.
Okay. So the first thing is the document verification that happens. After that, you are grouped. We were in a group of 7 people, and we were taken to a room to write to do the AWT. So AWT is analytical writing test. So they give you a paragraph and they give you a set of questions. So they will ask you about what is the assumption of the author, the direct assumption, indirect assumption, what are your viewpoints, how much do you agree, how much do you not agree, do you have any alternative solution to this particular argument. So my particular AWT was on extra homework given by the school, and so it was apparently. I mean, I had to write it on the controversial something. Wait. So yes, sorry. So it was on the right topic that I also advocate on. So they mentioned that students should not be given extra homework at home because it does not make sense and everything. And I am a person who loves homework, so I advocated the importance of homework. So I planned it down in that particular way. So AWT was my weakness area, and how did I prepare was I used to consistently understand how to write an AWT. I have read around more than 10-15 AWT before even going inside. I understood what was the structure. I mugged up a few sentences from the GMAT book, and I used those sentences exactly the same way. And I used to write AWT on a regular basis, and I used to take feedback from my mentors and my peer group. The second stage comes as your personal interview, and my personal interview was really happening. We were smiling and cheerful for the entire 32 minutes, and there was only 1-2 point wherein the professor were like, "Are you sure?" And they were trying to make faces, and they were trying to make me go in stress. But I mean, I was just laughing throughout, so it did not affect me. So the bifurcation of those 32 minutes were 20 minutes was majorly on my work experience, wherein I also had to do a sales pitch. The next 5 minutes was on corporate law, and the next 5 minutes was on some tradition and belief, which included Sabrimala, Ayodhya, and my personal belief on some traditions and religions. And the next 2 minutes were on my questions that I asked them.
Great. How important are current affairs for the interview? Right? Because people feel that it's only about the CAT exam, but they also have to be aware of what's happening around them. Right? For example, when you mentioned Sabrimala, they have to. If you not have been very comfortable with the topic, then probably the interview would have gone different. Right? So, what all stuffs they should keep, preparing for while apart from the main CAT exam preparation, and how important is that?
So, apart from only learning current affairs, okay, so current affairs is important. It is one of the 6 areas of PI that I usually take into consideration. There have been interviews wherein the entire 10-15 minutes of the interview is only on current affairs. So, learning current affairs or knowing about current affairs shows how much you're there in the world also. Or are you in just your own world? So understanding what is happening throughout the world and how is it affecting you personally, as well as your sector, as well as your entire country or the human race overall. So those are the things that I would take into consideration. Second thing, not only learning about current affairs through reading the newspapers, but having your own opinions do matter a lot. For example, when the Sabrimala and Ayodhya case came up, they questioned a lot on my beliefs, and but I was quite stubborn that these are my beliefs on what I mean, and I had an analytical, way of expressing it. Because of these reasons, my beliefs are these. I was able to say the pros, I was able to say the cons, and then I gave my answer. So that's how they are looking into it, of how are you able to communicate, what is your logical thinking behind any thing which comes up to you.
Okay, great. So, yeah. Also, when you said that you were very comfortable during the interview, right? What do you feel is, the importance of your attitude in the interview, right? For example, there would be cases where you would not know the answer, right? Also, how you sit and what is your stance there? Body language matters a lot as well. So, can you give some advice to the people about that?
So the first, after the first mock PI that I had given, the first feedback I got was, please learn to say please learn to say I don't know. Do not just try to globe around. Do not just try to blabber something which you're not aware about completely. So you can say I do not know, or maybe if I could have an informative guess. So that really works well. If they say a yes, you can answer. Otherwise, you should avoid answering those questions. But you should ensure that you're not saying I don't know for a very long time, like consistently 3-4 questions. If I do not know comes, it becomes like a bit negative part. But then if the interview is a stressed one, for example, in my COE interview, they went on some questions which I was not aware about. For example, who's the architecture of VT station? I'm not sure. Who's the architecture of Ram Mandir station? I do not know. How is the ventilation of Ram Mandir station? I do not know. So I said after 3 questions that, sir, I'm not from this particular background. So I mean, my answers would be consistently, I do not know about this topic. So you can ask me any other questions, maybe something related to marketing or something. I would be comfortable in answering whatever you need, or any other topic related to business, economic, finances. Because architecture was not my area, so I am not even aware about those things. In my IIM Ahmedabad interview also, there were points wherein I did not know. So for example, the corporate law, which I had said, I happened to answer a wrong thing. But since my 20 minutes were really nice, wherein I was doing so well, the panelist was helping me himself to, so he would ask me again and again a question, and he would get answers from my mouth till the time I got the correct answer. So he asked me 2 3 follow-up questions, and then he got the answer from my mouth itself. So your attitude really matters. The way you are smiling, it gives a positive vibe to the panelist as well. So there's a concept in psychology about the vibes that you are having across. So any positive vibes will help you to clear as compared to a negative vibe, wherein you are sitting like this, your hands are folded or something like that. It shows that you are a bit nervous. And the third thing they usually say is interview is a conversation rather than a formal interview in a B school. So treat it like a conversation wherein the panelists want to know you and whether you're the right fit for the college.
Okay, great. So generally the interviewers were very comfortable and they were also friendly during the interview, right?
Yes.
Great. And during the interview, did you feel that extracurricular activities are very important, and should people, when they are studying in their college right now, right? Uh, how important is it for them to take part in the let's say organizing an event in their college, right? Or probably taking part in competitions that are happening. It's okay to fail. That's a very different thing, but taking part in essay competitions or any debate competition or group discussion competitions, and uh, was during the interview, did you feel that okay, the interviewers picked those things from your resume and said okay, this is good, and then give you some credit for that?
So more than CV points, like a lot of people do extracurricular activities for CV or resume part, but I had a different opinion as compared to others. I would do it because I really like it, and what I've observed it in my 21 years is that uh, the extracurricular activities have built the person I am today. For example, something like multitasking. I have been doing things in different genres. So the act of multitasking. Second thing, act of learning something new. So whenever you throw in something new to me, I would adapt it really fast. The third thing is not giving up so easily. For example, I was a cricket captain. I was a bowler also. So I happened to injure my right hand, from which I also bowled. But then not giving up on that part, because my people were getting upset, I started practicing, from my left hand as well, because I did not want to, have my team members demotivated. I practiced from my left hand. I got 3 wickets on that day. So something like never giving up, learning something new was the things that I learned through these extracurricular activities. I got an opportunity to meet different kind of people, to understand their background and the psychology part, or maybe how to be a better leader, because I want to go into a management school. I want to be at a managerial position. I should be able to understand the demographics of people. So those were the things that I learned from extracurricular activities. Second thing, in my few interviews, they did ask me about extracurricular activities, but particularly about my IIM Ahmedabad interview, there was no mention of extracurricular activities at all. They did not even ask me, were you part of any extracurricular activities? Also, there was nothing in my form wherein I could mention about my extracurricular activities.
Okay, and your other interviews apart from IIM Ahmedabad?
In Bangalore, it went for about 5-6 minutes on my extracurricular activities. In Calcutta, also they asked me about my extracurricular activities.
What about your work experience? as freshers, people, the other major question that the student has is, should they, gain some experience and then, prepare for CAT, because that would be, a little better, or should they go ahead and, try to crack the exam in the first attempt itself, right? And how important is that for, for them during the interview, or through in the whole selection process? Importance of work experience, and uh, were there questions from that also in your interview or not? About, from your friends also, you might have learned about these things, right? So just a general
So,
advice.
so I believe it is a very subjective thing. There are people who directly go as freshers. There are people who believe that work experience is quite important as well. So in my batch right now, there are approximately 35 to 40% who are freshers. So there is nothing, as you know, because a lot of people think that their opportunities would be reduced if they are freshers. But no, there are few companies who usually prefer freshers. There are companies who prefer people with work ex. So you have opportunities for both. It is purely on your this thing where you want to go. For me particularly, I mean, uh, I, I I mean, my course was a lot of theoretical as compared to the others. So I wanted to understand the uh, business as well. Also, since I wanted to go into marketing, but there are so many areas in marketing, I wanted to explore a bit of marketing as well. What are the like whether I wanted to go into brand management, or I want to go into advertising or FMCG sector. So those are the things I wanted to know. So for me, that gave me a push. Okay, so now I can go in this particular sector over these particular sector. For some people, for me it was like, okay, this is a tick mark. For some people it was the other way around. Okay, I have done a job in IT, so now I will never do a job in IT because I know this is not my thing. So it could be any way around. Both have pros and cons. The freshers are able to easily able to adapt the curriculum well, because they've just come out of the college life and it is very easy for them to adapt to a learning life again, academic part. Whereas the people with work experience are able to understand the concepts faster because they have had the practical experience and practical exposure. So I mean, both have their pros and cons.
Okay. And okay, so the next question would be about, if you were to go back and, look at your whole preparation strategy right now, when once you have cleared, you have achieved that, but when you look back, did you feel that, okay, these things could have been better, and what are the mistakes that you did, and something that you tell others to make sure that they don't do that, right? For example, you rightly mentioned that when verbal was not something that you were getting good marks, and you focused on that. The first thing that you started with at 4 a.m. was verbal, right? So these stuffs, something that you probably would have, if you want to go back and say that, okay, these are things that I want to change in your whole preparation strategy over the last 2 3 years. What would you do that? What would that be?
Okay, first thing would be not to have so much of overconfidence. Like, okay, so like DLR and cons are my strengths. So I mean, I would not have so much focus on those areas, but I would focus a lot on verbal. Like, get into verbal very deeply. But then I realized, okay, if those were my strengths areas, I could have ensured that I score very high from those sectors as well. Like I messed up big time in DILR in CAT 2019 because I thought I was afraid. Actually, I can say I got one set exactly correct, and but I marked everything wrong because I thought, I solved this in 2 minutes and maybe something is wrong, so I started marking everything wrong. There were also times wherein I would kind of miss out on reading a few things. For example, in quants, I missed out on reading one area. So my answer was correct, but I typed in wrong. And that happened with 3 questions. So maybe those are the areas that I think I should have worked on more. I should have given some more time on it. The third thing is proper analysis, deep dive analysis. So till CAT 2000, till May 2019, I did not know how to analyze CAT, how to analyze mock test. Okay, very honestly. So I apparently had a lot of hesitation, but I met my professor and I asked him very upfrontly, please teach me how to analyze a mock. And he told me, okay, these were the mistakes that I've been doing it consistently. I started initially doing those analysis of mock really well, but after that I was like, okay, now I know how to analyze mock. Now I'm not maintaining those Excel sheet properly. I will just kind of have a rough idea. but I could have done it a bit more deeply inside to have more knowledge. Okay, so now these are the areas I need to focus on. And the fourth thing was to have the right set of peer group to study. So initially I used to be one of the person who used to be a branch topper of my classes. So I used to be really happy, but I was 96 percentile. Even though I was a branch topper, I was just 96, 97 percentile in a mock. And I thought, acha haan, theek hai, branch topper hai. But then I never saw the actual competition outside, and and you know, those were the things I should have focused on initially. Like, you know, okay, I should understand what are the perspective of a 100 percentiler. Like, I happened to meet a 100 percentiler who said that anything below 32 questions in quants was unacceptable for me. And I realized, yes, that is the 100 percentiler's attitude. Even if you have to score 100 percentile, you have to have such targets. It might sound very unrealistic, but you will have to have that target. So those things were there. And the fifth thing I did was to reach out to my mentor very late. I met him only in October 3rd week. I should have met him long back because he was the person who boosted my score really well in the last phases. So those were the points.
Great, thanks a lot, Isha. So viewers, if you have any question, please type it in the chat window, right? So that you know she'll be able to help you out. And if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up the session. Just wait. Please ask your queries in the Q&A box. Okay. The first question is from Navya. I think you are able to see that. How did you find peer groups apart from time peers?
Time peers. Okay. So in CAT 2019, I had taken an IMS test series. So they have a concept of Club 100. So anyone who scores above 100 marks are eligible to be a part of Club 100. I thought I was not eligible, but somehow I got. And the second thing happened, I was quite lucky to shift to Thane again. And I met one of the brilliant mentors over here, one of the rankers of CAT as well. So those were the time I was able to meet people from other, like, you know, other groups apart from time. And the second thing was again WhatsApp and Facebook groups of MBA preparation. I used to talk to random people on WhatsApp and Facebook, you know, and help each other.
Great. So any other question? Yeah, the next question is from Sashank. How can we compensate for our bad academic records? Like creating a good profile throughout the preparation for CAT 2020, right?
I would say, Shashank, you should focus on your CAT right now. So you cannot compensate for something which has happened in the past, right? So focus on your CAT score as high possible, so that I mean, you have a higher chances, like, you know, at least you can get those scores in your composite score. And creating a good profile, I would say that rather than forcing yourself for something, you know, which you don't like, I would suggest you focus on your hobbies. So hobbies are something which will also keep you going on throughout your, you know, CAT preparation. For example, for me, since I'm a dancer since 17 years, what I would do is I would keep a target that, you know, after this one sectional test, I will dance for 10 minutes. And my body, my brain loves dancing. So I would ensure that, you know, I would complete that sectional test or maybe those 10-15 questions really fast, so that I can like, you know, dance or something like that. And I focused on that. Second thing I also did was like, you know, since I mean, I tried learning Chinese Mandarin, which I should not say right now. But since I was quite interested in that language, I did that for 10-15 minutes. So creating a good profile, you can select 2-3 hobbies that you like, 1-2 hobbies, whatever it is, and try to improve on that. So while they also ask you what are your hobbies, you should have something very substantial. Because I remember in my Bangalore interview, 5 minutes were only on my dance. Regarding they cross questioned me also, why don't you do a dance, like, you know, Indian dance? Why are you ashamed of like, you know, performing an Indian like, you know, dance or anything?
Yes.
So, but then I was able to answer all of those queries. They will ask you, did you try something new about it? Like, you know, they went on to know that, you know, do you know what is the origin of jazz? any famous dancer of jazz or something like that. So I would suggest whichever is your hobby, 1, 2, 3, just focus on that. That would also help you to keep motivated in your CAT preparation as well.
Okay. So the
What
next
was
question
you?
is from Diksha Rikhi. So how was your verbal specific strategy? Did you focus on solving, just on RCs?
Okay. So very big mistake that I learned. So I learned this from one of the mentors in a webinar itself, that the difference between a 100 percentile or 99 percentile in verbal as compared to others is the others usually focus only on RC, right? Because it contains like a 24 out of 34 questions. But the 100 percentile or the 99 percentile also focuses on the verbal ability. Okay, because a lot of people are missing on those 10 questions. 10 into 3, 30 marks. 30 marks can just change your entire entire graph. Okay. So I realized that my RC was good enough, but my major thing was I used to sleep during my RC. Okay. During my verbal section, I used to usually sleep. I was awake. Have an engineer. You can imagine an engineer student sitting in a class that he's awake right now. He's physically sitting in front of you, but mentally he's at some other place. He's sleeping maybe. So I'm that kind of category person. So I used to sleep. I used to mark some random things here and there. So what I did was to understand how to solve an RC. Okay, like while analyzing, I realized I was able to solve those questions, but I used to maybe sleep during the RC part, or I was just not interested in RC. And the major reason was because I created a thing in my mind that I do not like verbal. Verbal is not giving back that love to me, and I'm able to score in DLR and cont. Those are my strength, and this is my weakness. So those were the blockages that I had. So first thing, I removed that blockage. I kind of made verbal ability my boyfriend. Okay, so I'm going to give you my love. You give me back the love. Okay. I focused a lot on verbal ability. The second thing I did was to understand how to even first thing read the passage. Okay, a lot of times we don't even understand how to read a passage. The questions come secondary. So first thing, how to read a passage. There are some things that you're supposed to avoid. There are some things which changes the meaning completely. So I focused on that. There were video solutions given by the classes, so I used to listen to that. The third thing I learned was the method of elimination in RC, which was the major thing which was getting my marks lower. So I would usually, initially I used to select the answer. Okay, so A, B, C, D, the answer is B. But then I realized, okay, no, I have to first eliminate the option A, C, D to get to my answer B. Otherwise, I should never go for that. So I would go on a self-debate with myself. No, Isha, option A is correct, option B is correct. No, this is there, that is there. And it would take me 5 minutes per question initially, very honestly. But later on, I started developing, and I used to mark those logic with the video solutions given. And I would also call up my friends. Are tera kya tha logic? Are we on the same track? Or maybe, something like that. And then once my logic started going, in that particular direction itself, my marks also started increasing day by day. And then slowly by slowly, I used to practice a lot on on RC passages. So later on, it started increasing, and my 5-minute debate of particular question reduced to 30 seconds in my actual CAT. So the practice made me do that. The third thing for the verbal ability part was, again, more of practice and more of accuracy. Uh, and the major thing I learned was my strategy problem. Okay, so for example, in the out of context question, we usually out of the 5 sentences given to us, we try to assemble the 4 sentences, and the 5th one which doesn't fit is the answer, right? But that was wrong. So I learned a new method wherein you have to give 1-2 words to each sentence, and then you see which one is not fitting, and that is the answer. So those were the techniques that I learned. But very importantly, everyone has a very different strategy. All the CAT toppers will tell you a different strategy. I would ask you to do, try different strategies, and then see whichever suits you best. You should try for that. I have tried 5-6 strategies myself for even RCs, for even verbal ability, and tried for whichever suited best for me. Okay.
Yes. So Next question is, what according to you is the ideal time to start preparing for CAT 20? Shah, that's CAT 2020 or 2021 next year?
Any which way you can start it right now. It's a lockdown time. You have a very nice time to start because you do not even have your college or something like that. Plus, if you are free, I think you can start with it. Maybe right now you can focus on your basics a lot because basics are the thing which comes handy to you. So even if it's CAT 2020-2021, you should start right now. Ideally, you should not even waste a single second. Even if it's 22, you should just start it off. I mean, whatever basic. So maybe you can just start with learning the basics of quants. For verbal, you can just start reading online a lot to kind of develop a reading habit. And for DLR, you can play games like Sudoku, Kakoru, which helps you in building a logical reasoning.
Yeah, so there's another interesting question because there are a lot of questions as of now. We don't have so much of time, but there's another interesting question by Hardik, which is what was your strategy over the last few days just before the CAT exam? Because that's when students try to start panicking that they have a lot of syllabus to cover, probably things that they would have prepared earlier. They are not very comfortable with those things. Towards the examination, should they reserve a particular number of days before the exam for revision of everything, right? So that they get comfortable with everything again, right? So yeah.
So for me, CAT was just like another mock. I mean, I did not treat it as something like it's going to be a CAT or something, because then you start getting panicking. So if you have for example, I had given 37 mocks already, and CAT was the 38th mock. So it just came in that order. So I would ideally do my quants revision. I would go back to understanding those things previously. Okay, these were the mistakes I made and everything. Now, apparently, I had a very big blunder. I would say I do not even suggest this to anyone. I was attempting mocks till the last date of CAT. 24th November was the exam. I was giving a mock on 23rd November, which I usually do not suggest people. So exactly 2 weeks prior to the CAT, I got a chance to do a live mock test. Sorry, not live mock, but live sectional test of verbal and quants with my mentor, who's 100% Tyler. So he was for me it was not to understand the concepts part, but for me it was to understand how differently is he able to solve, because till then I was only scoring a 96-97 percentile, and I knew I wouldn't have got a call from any colleges with a 97 percentile. So my thing was majorly to understand what is in his mind when he's able to see a question, because my concepts were almost done till November part, so the concepts was never a problem. So I thought, okay, let me try to apply these strategies. And he suggested me a few mocks. He told me only to do 2 or 3, but I solved more than that because I'm a person who loves doing mocks and everything. But what I saw was in the last part, my marks were increasing consistently. So my highest score till date was 200 marks, which I scored just 1 day prior to the CAT. Now, this could have been a very bad thing if I would have scored a lower mark. Okay, I would have got, sad. So usually people do not attempt any mock in the last week, but for me, it acted really different. And since I was almost in a, I don't care attitude, even if I would have scored a bad or a good, I would have been in the same mindset, so that wouldn't have been a problem. But the techniques that I learned in the 2 weeks prior to the CAT, I just wanted to apply that. So I took up a lot of mocks in the last week itself. And in the last day I was just having fun. I was watching movie, I went for a walk, I was doing every random possible thing just to keep my calm mind.
Yeah. And someone has asked that I don't have much of work experience in terms of internship. Will it be a hindrance in me getting into IIM? I don't. Yeah. Please.
So internship or articleship of CA is not counted as a work experience. The work experience is purely your work after your graduation. So this wouldn't be counted. And it is not at all a hindrance into getting into any IIM, including the top ABC, LIK, anyone. As I mentioned, there is around 30 to 40% of my batch itself who are freshers. So that shouldn't be a problem to any one of you.
So, sectional attempts. marks and different number of questions that you attempted in each of the sections, and how did you score there?
Okay. So one more thing about me is my accuracy level is really bad. Unlike the others who mentioned, who will also mention about how important it is to have a very high accuracy, like 80-90% accuracy. My accuracy was always 67 percentage. Like I have it, like I used to consistently map that thing. So even if I'm scoring, like even if I'm attempting 3 sums, I would get 2 correct, 1 wrong. And even if I'm attempting 100 sums, I would get 67 correct, 33 wrong. So that have been a consistent trend that I was seeing, which is also a bad thing, and for which I was also being shouted by my professors. But then I realized by the end of the last week that I should not focus on that. And if uh, if if I'm consistently scoring 67 percentage accuracy, I should always attempt. I should always aim for a higher attempt. Okay, so that will set off my accuracy part. So my sectional attempts were 33 out of 34 in verbal, 28 out of 32 in DILR, and approximately 28 out of 34 in what do you call cons. So overall, it was around 89 out of 100 attempts. And again, my accuracy turned out to be 67 percentage exactly. And so my bet was almost correct.
So also, I would like to tell people that CAT preparation is actually a journey, right? And when you get into an IIM, it's a beginning. It's not something that which sets you completely apart from everybody else. The struggle actually starts from there as well. So people,
Yes.
so it's a journey, and you have to figure out that there will be ups and downs, right? So just a summary of the whole preparation and advice to people not to if they're preparing, how should they prepare briefly, and then if they are not able to score really good, right? So how they should not be disheartened by that, and focus on their weaknesses and then prepare back and back.
So few lessons I have learned from my mentors. I usually say this to people, and I would again repeat myself. So in one of the sessions, so he asked us, like there were 200 of us, and he asked us, how many of you think you can score a 99 percentile plus? And to a very big surprise, only 5 people raised hands, which included me as well. And I remember my friends asking me, "Arey, tu kya haath utha rahi hai? You think you can score a 99?" I was like, "Yes, I believe I can score a 99." And a very nice thing he said that that those 5 people who raise their hands for a 99 plus will surely score because they believe they will. The others have already lost their they've already lost their goal only, so they will not even give that much what do you say, efforts to score a 99. So I believe you guys will score. The second thing I learned was we were asked how many of you think like you want to go to ABC, and again very few of us raised our hands. And no, so for ABC a lot of people raised their hands. And then he said one very nice thing. So we might not meet in November again, but ask yourself again on the day of CAT, is your aim still an ABC, or have your aim gone to a lower college? So if it has gone for a lower college, you've already lost half of the battle. So if you're still there, if you're thinking like, no, I will still go to an ABC, you will make to an ABC. The third thing is there might be a lot of times wherein you have weakness areas, you have strength areas, but always believe. So even in the strength areas, anything lesser than 300 score has a scope for improvement. So the mistake that I have made, that thinking like I'm a consistent 99 percentiler in DILR, so I was a bit relaxed. But do not get relaxed. Try to be in 100 percentiler. There is no, the limit is 102 out of 102. So you should always aim for that. Nothing less than a 300 marks should be your aim for you. The third thing is balance all the section really well. So again, the mistake that I made was more focus on verbal as compared to DLR and quants. I would say you should, maybe have like a 60-40, 30-20-20 or something like that, 30-40-40, whatever it is, so that you are able to balance everything. I met a person who scored really well in 2 sections and terribly missed the third one. So now he's got calls from none because he doesn't even qualify for the basic percentile requirement. And that's such a sad thing. So I would suggest you should
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there was a yes.
Network error.
Yes. Okay. Okay. It's happening again. Um, Let me see if she is able to get
Okay.
back.
And
Yes, Isha. It's okay. This happens. Okay. Isha. Yeah. So
hello, are you able to hear me now?
yes, yes, yes. Now we are able to hear you.
Yeah, and the and the fifth thing would be take every section as different, okay? Because something like if CAT 2019 happens, wherein your first section is the most difficult section, it should not hamper your other sections. Or maybe even if your DLR section is a bit difficult, should not let it hamper the quant section. And like, just keep your mind calm throughout the entire all the sections, and do not let anything affect, because if it is difficult for you, it is difficult for everyone else. So the people who made sure that they did not let the verbal ability sections difficulty affect the other two made it really well. But there were, on the other hand, people who used to consistently be rank 1, rank 2 in mock test series, performed bad because they messed up with the verbal part.
Great.
uh,
So, okay. Thanks, Isha. We'll try to end this session now. It's just that the session was organized by Amigos, which is my product, which is a social network for students, and IM Society, which is again the largest community of IM alumni. I think you would have already joined the group, and we'll see how we'll keep on interacting there. And thanks a lot, everyone, for attending the session.
Also, if you have any queries, you can reach to me on LinkedIn, and I will be happy to solve your queries.
Great. So what I'll do is I'll just share the LinkedIn. Can you share your LinkedIn this thing profile URL?
So there is only one Isha Nisar on LinkedIn. You can find that. Surely.
Okay. So I think you'll be able to find her there. Or what I'll do is I'll share the URL of her profile also in the chat. Feel free to connect with her. Great. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. Thanks Isha. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you so much.
So all the best for your
All the
future.
best, everyone. And I hope you guys reach to your college of dreams.
Yes, and just one thing that I have to add, it's not just that IM ABCs are the only colleges that you have to go through. There are other IMs are also equally great, and it's about what you do after you join your colleges, what going to decide, and decide your future. So that's okay to go into other colleges. Also, there are good colleges like FMS, IFT. These are great colleges. MDI. So go through that also, but make sure that you have your vision set and give everything that you have got. Okay. Yes, we are recording the session. We'll try to convert the session, and we'll share the video on our platforms. Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks a lot. See you. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.